From Corregidor's radio room, the dreaded capitulation of Bataan was announced by Lieutenant Norman Reyes.
Good evening, everyone, everywhere. This is the Voice of Freedom, broadcasting from somewhere in the Philippines. Bataan has fallen. The Philippine-American troops on this war-ravaged and blood-stained peninsula have laid down their arms. With heads bloody but unbowed, they have yielded to the superior force and numbers of the enemy. The adversary, in the pride of his power and triumph, will credit our troops with nothing less than the courage and fortitude that his own troops have shown in battle. Our men have fought a brave and bitterly contested struggle. All the world will testify to the almost superhuman endurance with which they stood up until the last in the face of overwhelming odds. But the decision had to come. Men fighting under the banner of unshakable faith are made of something more than flesh, but they are not made of impervious steel. The flesh must yield at last. Endurance melts away, and the end of the battle must come. Bataan has fallen, but the spirit that made it stand, a beacon to all the liberty-loving peoples of the world, cannot fail.
Gathered right behind me here, ladies and gentlemen, is a large number of Filipino war veterans, men who fought during the Second World War. They are accompanied by their relatives and friends who are gathered here along the slopes of Mount Samat. 52 years ago, these men at arms made a very valiant and courageous stand, fighting a superior force both in numbers and equipment. And after about 3 or 4 months, these men gallantly surrendered these slopes, the last part of their homeland that they had given up, to an enemy who had overwhelmed them in superior numbers in force and arms. They have come back here April 9th, 1994, to relive those memories, the gallant struggle that they have made here on the slopes of Mount Samat along the Bataan Peninsula, in commemoration also of, well, today, Araw ng Kagitingan, the Day of Valor. I'm Toby Nabrida, your host for today's live coverage of the 1994 observance of the Araw ng Kagitingan and Philippine Veterans Week. Our coverage is being brought to you by the Presidential Broadcast Staff, Radio TV Malacanang, through the facilities of our friends from the Philippine Long Distance Telephone Company. Our carrying station, of course, People's Television 4, and you will be viewing us later on a slightly delayed telecast at 1:30 in the afternoon through the facilities of RPN 9. There are a lot of people who have gathered here right now along the slopes of, Mount Samat. This is just about a few meters or so below the cross of Mount Samat, and just if you had noticed right behind me, the Greek colonnade, the markings and insignia of the various divisions and units that had fought here. The units, of course, coming from the United States Armed Forces in the Far East, from the Philippines, of course, and the American forces. Also, a number of, just a few minutes ago, our cameras were not able to catch that, a large delegation of representatives from the people of Japan. Today's theme, valor, peace, and international understanding. It's not exactly today's celebration, although of course it marked and started out by feat of arms. Today, 50 years, more than 50 years later, we commemorate the stand that these men of 3 different nations who had come here, and the hallmarks in peace and international understanding that they have done. The men and women who fought here, the men and women of Japan, the United States, and of course this country, the Philippines. We'd like to let you in on the, of course, April 5 to April 11 is the celebration of Philippine Veterans Week, and right in the middle of that, April 9th, is the Araw ng Kagitingan. Joining us at this juncture of our coverage is Undersecretary Ernesto Guidaya of the Department of National Defense also with the distinguished career in the military. Magandang umaga po sa iyo, General.
Good morning, Toby.
Secretary. Sir, kayo po ang chairman ng National Executive Committee natin for these two main events that we're celebrating this week, Philippine Veterans Week and ito pong Araw ng Kagitingan. Could you give us a rundown, the activities that we are holding this week?
Well, actually, the Veterans Week started last 5 April, and we started off with the sunrise ceremonies, wherein our living veterans were able to pay homage to those who departed ahead. And we had the wreath-laying ceremony and a parade by the Armed Forces of the Philippines in honor of our veterans. We have the 6th, we have this oratorical contest, and we have the 2 finalists here today. The public will be able to hear our 2 finalists. And we have the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. They had their jamboree and campore. And then today, we have this, especially the what we call the Araw ng Kagitingan. We will have another activity tomorrow, and that will be in Capas National Shrine. It will be a simple Remembrance Day. There will be a mass for our departed veterans and tree planting ceremony.
Secretary, may I just find out, ilan na lang po itong ating living veterans? Well, we're not just talking about those who had served during the Second World War, ano? Pero
Yes.
ito na rin pong kasama ng World War I at yung Spanish-American na. Itong Filipino American War po. Ilan na lang po ito?
If you are after the number of veterans of the Second World War, we estimate that it should be about 110 living veterans.
Do we have figures? Itong overall po, kasama po itong nag-serve during the First World War tsaka itong Filipino-American War po?
Oh yes, we had figures before from after the war. We had some 437,000 of them, and over the years many have passed away, and so we estimated that last year there were 120,000 living veterans. But we have not yet finished processing those who helped during the war in the resistance movement.
I see.
And also in the new law, RA 6948, we have the retirees who are considered as veterans.
So ito lang, hindi lang po pala itong mga talagang lumaban po dito sa Bataan at sa Corregidor, pero kasama na rin po dito itong nasa guerrilla movement
Oh
at
yes,
yung
that's right, including those who joined the resistance movement. And we have 2 categories in that. We have the recognized guerrilla and the deserving guerrilla.
Secretary, also another facet of the celebrations that I have noticed, maybe itong past decade po. Dati-dati po, Filipino at mga Amerikano lamang po ang nagtitipon dito, nagpupulong-pulong dito along ito pong dambana ng Kagitingan natin. Ngayon po, we also see the significant large groupings of Japanese veterans as well and their relatives who come here. Could you please explain itong significance po, itong nagbubuklod-buklod po itong tatlong bansa na noon po ay naglalaban-laban?
Well, as they say, we have no permanent enemies. We have only permanent national interests. And we have now our goal, the goal of the President, Philippines 2000. And so our enemies before are now our friends. And they are here to honor also their dead, their parents or grandparents who served that war, who did not know what it was all about. But nevertheless, they served their duty. They did did their military service, and they came here and they perished during that war.
So it's not just hindi na medyo sinasantabi na po natin itong paglalaban-laban, but well, of course, you've served in the military. What we honor today is the valor of the men who had fought in these slopes.
In fact, we have renamed Corregidor as the Island of Peace, Valor, and International Understanding. So that goes with the, that answers your question, that we are not just having our American friends and our people who served during that war and their families, but including the Japanese.
And they've become, in fact, very strong partners in the development of our country.
Oh, yes,
Well,
we
not
look
just-
forward. We look forward to our Japanese friends in the development of our country.
Ano pa po? I understand there are similar activities that are being done, Secretary. Doon ba rin po sa may corridor, meron din po tayong activities doon?
Actually, we were supposed to be there tomorrow. That was the schedule, original schedule. But because of the lack of buses to ferry this number of veterans now, and the fact that so many groups have already reserved for the buses for tomorrow, we decided to cancel the trip to Corregidor. And in lieu of the trip to Corregidor, we will have this Kapas National Shrine.
I see. So ito po yung mangyayari bukas. Ano,
But May 6th actually is also Corregidor Day.
yes.
Yeah, so that will be another celebration.
I see. Okay, maybe in parting po, some message po para sa ating mga manonood on the ito pong pagdiriwang, our celebration of Araw ng Kagitingan and the Philippine Veterans Week.
Well, in behalf of the members of the National Executive Committee, we would like to thank the people of Bataan and especially the provincial and municipal officials of Bataan for this cooperation that we are having today. And notwithstanding the balmy weather, we have a huge crowd here. So again, to our people who are not here, to the veterans who are not here, magandang araw po sa inyo lahat.
Okay, maraming salamat po. Defense Undersecretary Ernesto Guidaya, the National Chairman of the National Executive Committee, and shedding some light into the activities of ito pong ating April 5 to 11 Philippine Veterans Week. Ngayon napag-uusapan po natin itong Veterans Week. Kasama po natin naman ngayon sa ating coverage si Colonel Emmanuel De Ocampo. Ito po ang ating presidente ng Veterans Federation of the Philippines. Good morning, sir.
Magandang umaga din po.
Just maybe let me start off. You served here during the fighting in World War II, sir.
In Luzon, yes. Yes, I did.
This day, I suppose, brings some very poignant memories to you. Pwede kong malaman what you feel right now, well, with all these people who have gathered here and in commemorating the struggle that you had done here.
Well, alam po ninyo, ang mga veterano na narito na nakakausap ko, katulad ko rin, ang sa kanila, konti na lang ang mayroong sama ng loob. Konti na lang. Sapagkat yun naman, isang paglilingkod na hindi nila maiwasan talaga. At nangyari ngayong sila ay kaharap ng mga dayuhan, mga banyaga, dahil sa bansa natin. Ngayon, sa pagbabalik nila rito, nagkakaroon sila ng ngayong isa, kanina sabi sa akin, kinikilabutan ako. Kinikilabutan ako ting makikita ko itong mga bundok na ito. Yan ang nararamdaman niya mga veterano niyan. Dahil para sa kanila, ang pagbabalik dito sa Bataan na matiwasay na, hindi katulad nung sila'y pumunta rito, yung iba'y dumating ng gabi at napalaban na agad, napakalungkot ng mga panahon na yon. Ngayon, para sa kanila, itong pagbabalik na ito, parang isang maliit na homecoming.
And I understand, about 110,000 or so veterans. Well, I hope a large number of them are viewing our coverage here. Could you tell us, sir, ano naman po ang ginagawa ng Veterans Federation upang mapabuti to uplift the welfare of those men, soldiers who had served the country at its direst need? What are we doing in terms of bettering their lot?
The Veterans Federation has seen to it that all sectors of our society, including the government, is awakened to the plight of the veterans. And the first sector, of course, is the national government, who has been giving our people, the veterans, enough attention. And for many years now, at the start of President Aquino's presidency, and with the, of course, encouragement from cabinet members like Secretary Ramos before, and it's now being continued under President Ramos, the government has given a very big block, I would say block of benefits to the veterans. And this is the first time in the history of veteranism that the veterans have given us this type of attention. That is, they've been given old age pensions, they've been given medical attention, they've been given livelihood through government. Now, through the private sector also, the private sector has been giving funds to purchase medicine and also equipment like the Philbits, which was founded by President Ramos. This has now some money which is used to buy equipment like wheelchairs, walking sticks, medicine, and other medical equipment. Now, the other sectors have been asked also to contribute to the upkeep of certain homes for the aged for veterans. And the private sector has responded very admiringly.
Colonel, maybe meron po tayo ganun. Let me just get this straight. Has this pending bill in Congress been signed into law already? Ito pong Veterans Act?
Ngayon po lang, itong araw na ito, iniintay nga ng mga veterano, lalagdaan ni President Ramos itong araw na ito, itong pagbibigay ng karagdagang biyaya, additional pensions to the veterans. And they are eagerly waiting for him to sign it today.
Could you, well, of course, hinihintay po natin mga kasama ang pagdating ng ating pinakamamahal na Pangulong Fidel V. Ramos. We understand he's somewhere in Mariveles, and well, in just about a few minutes, he will be coming here. Colonel Ocampo, could you tell us please just the main features po nitong ating pong Veterans Act na inaantay natin lalagdaan po ng ating Pangulo?
The main features are many, but I'll try to cut through it. No, it gives more benefits in form of educational benefit, wherein the grandchild or a direct descendant of a veteran who had not used his educational benefit will be granted that privilege to study. The veteran who had died and whose wife was left at the age of younger than 65 before could not get any help. But now under this law at 65, even before 65 years old, even before she reaches 65, she's going to get everything. Now, on the rest of the old age, if a veteran is 65 years and up to 69, he gets 1,000, whereas he was getting only 500 before. Now, a veteran who is now 70 years old and above will get the disability pension plus the old age pension. And this is a very big amount.
Kung ganun po, ang nangyayari po dito, hindi lamang po, not only are our veterans getting this welfare package, but pati na rin po itong kanilang immediate relatives ang nakikinabang kung ganun.
Opo, dahil sa yan ang pinagkasunduan nila Senador Romulo, nila Senador Mercado, at Congressman Badilles, Congressman Ponce de Leon, no? Congressman Cirilles, na ilakip na yan. At hindi lang yun, mayroon pang nilalaman dyan. Ang veteranong kaasawa ng pangalawa na mayroong anak na minor de edad, ang minor de edad na asawang yan ay bibigyan pa rin ng konting biyaya.
I see. Just maybe, what else are we expecting? Anything else from the president's? Well, he will be delivering the keynote address today. Is there anything we expect from the president in terms of some key policy statements siguro na maaari niyang sabihin today?
Yes, he would be asking that after the government under his leadership has granted them so much, the veterans must now respond and also do something to help the government. And I think that is proper. He has been doing that all along, and the veterans have been responding also to him. You see, he is one man who understands us because he is a veteran.
Yes, having served in the Korean and in the Vietnam contingents sa pinadala rin po ng ating bansa.
No, but he has the added advantage. He is the son of a veteran, and he himself is a veteran. And I cannot say that. I don't have that status.
Okay, sige. Maraming salamat po for shedding so much information on, well, itong ating Veterans Act and the how the Federation is trying its best to better the welfare of our veterans, sir.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Senate President and the Senators, Romulo, Mercado, and the others, to thank them, Congressman Badilles and his committee, but of all of them, President Ramos.
Okay, maraming salamat and good morning. Yes, and napag-uusapan po natin na si Presidente Ramos himself, a veteran, and well, he has just arrived, as you had seen in your screens, and well, the Honor Battalion will now render the arrival honors for the Chief Executive. Arrival honors just completed there for the Chief Executive, His Excellency President Fidel V. Ramos. That's about 20 meters lower down the slopes from where we are located. Exactly we're at the right side of the Greek colonnade, where the various insignias of the units, the Philippine and American soldiers that had fought here in Bataan. Trooping the line, of course, the Chief Executive, also remembering his own experiences in battle, in combat, very much as Colonel Ocampo, the President of the Veterans Federation of the Philippines, had said, this is an occasion which is very, very close to the President's heart, himself having served the country in various contingents that had been sent out. His father, former Foreign Affairs Secretary Narciso Ramos, a veteran also of the Second World War, and who had served also in the underground movement upon the fall of Bataan and Corregidor. The President, of course, wearing the overseas cap, marking the various insignias and medals of his campaigns, and escorted, of course, by AFP Chief of Staff General Lisandro Abadia. Today's significance, of course, we commemorate the heroism of thousands of nameless Filipino, American, and Japanese veterans who fought a gallant stand for their countries in these slopes of Mount Samat and in the Bataan Peninsula, those first 3-4 months of 1942. During this day, we also commemorate 3 significant events in the pages of Philippine history. We had mentioned, of course, the fall of Bataan on April 9th, 1942. And, well, as Colonel Ocampo had mentioned earlier, the fall of, Secretary Gidaya had mentioned earlier, the fall of Corregidor on May 6, 1942. Just a few days short of 1 month after the fall of Bataan. And in 1945, June 14th, the victory at Besang Pass. From the arrival area, the President will proceed to the Greek colonnade. As we had explained earlier, this is where the this marble cap structure with an altar, esplanade, and museum. These are where several historical depictions include the insignias and various inscriptions as well of the key events that led to the fall of Bataan in April of 1942. The President will be joined by His Excellencies the Ambassador to Japan, to the Philippines from Japan, Ambassador Matsuda, and the United States Ambassador to the Philippines, His Excellency Ambassador John Negroponte. There will be a wreath-laying ceremony at the foot of this Greek colonnade, and a moment of silence as well for the playing of the taps, the rifle volleys and the rifles, and the playing of the various national anthems of Japan, the United States, and the Philippines. The- The end of the wreath-laying ceremony at the colonnade here at the Dambana ng Kagitingan. The President, assisted by Japanese Ambassador Yoshifumi Matsuda and United States Ambassador John Negroponte, laying the wreath here at the colonnade. As we had mentioned earlier, we commemorate today 3 events. The pages of Philippine history, the fall of Bataan, the fall of Corregidor, and the victory at Sang Pass. For 35 years, since 1945, these events were celebrated separately, but on June 20th, 1987, by virtue of Executive Order number 283 promulgated by then President Aquino. April 9th of every year was proclaimed as Araw ng Kagitingan, in commemoration of all those who courageously fought for freedom and hope for peace during World War II. Rifle volleys and ruffles from the band. A very poignant and emotional moment we can imagine for the veterans assembled here. Flower drop from the helicopter wing of the Philippine Air Force right at the front, the steps of the colonnade. The Air Force boys getting a warm cheer here from the large crowd gathered observing the celebrations here at the Dambana ng Kagitingan. Today's theme, of course, the observance of Araw ng Kagitingan, valor, peace, and international understanding. The representatives from the free nations who had been locked in battle here 50 years ago, setting aside those differences at the end of the war, working together, and now all three of them partners in development and very strong allies, taking common stand in issues that have been concerning the world. So, other distinguished personalities in the entourage accompanying the president. Now, of course, we have mentioned earlier Japanese Ambassador Yoshifumi Matsuda and United States Ambassador John Negroponte. Also in the entourage, we understand, is the Australian Ambassador Richard Smith, the American Charge d'Affaires Mr. Raymond Burghardt, the author of the principal author from the House of the Senate, the Veterans Act, Senator Alberto Romulo, and his counterpart from the House of Representatives, Representative Mariano Badellas. The President is also accompanied by Bataan Representative Felicita Payumo. Our host for today's activities is retired Major General Rafael Zagala. The President waving there to the veterans here as he makes his way towards the grandstand area, working his way along the central aisle here. And as had been mentioned earlier by Secretary Ernesto Guidaya and Colonel Emmanuel de Ocampo, we will be witnessing also in the stand the signing of the Veterans Welfare Act. We shall be hearing also later on some remarks from the representatives from the Japanese government and the United States government as well, from Ambassador Yoshifumi Matsuda, of course, and Ambassador John Negroponte. Just a few moments, the program proper will start here with an invocation and a welcome address from Undersecretary Guidaya. The bill that will be signed by the President today, these amend certain sections of Republic Act 6948.
Standing for the entry of the colors.
The act known as the act standardizing and upgrading the benefits for military veterans and their dependents, and as it had been mentioned earlier by Colonel Ocampo, these benefits this welfare package do not only benefit the veterans themselves, but also their immediate relatives, such as their wives, their widows, their children, and their grandchildren. The entrance of the colors here, the insignia, these are the colors of the units that have served with distinction here during World War II. Number of them, of course, the 11th Division, 31st.
We now have the playing of the national anthem. Post-colors.
The president, we understand, had come from the Bataan Shipping and Engineering Corporation compound in Mariveles, where we understand he had inaugurated a grains terminal there. It was very early this morning, after which he proceeded by chopper here to Mount Samat, the dambana ng Kagitingan. There is a memorial cross here, and far and wide along the countryside this can be seen. 91.8 meters tall and located high on the slopes of Mount Samat. It's a fitting salute to the spirit and sacrifice of the countless men who fought and died here in the Bataan Peninsula. The program proper will now start. Our MC, General Zagala.
President Fidel Ramos, Your Excellency, Ambassador John D. Negro Ponte, Your Excellency, Ambassador Yosufumi Atsuda, honorable members of the Cabinet and of Congress, members of the Diplomatic Corps, other distinguished guests, fellow veterans of World War II, ladies and gentlemen. Before we commence these ceremonies in observance of the Araw ng Kagitingan, may I be permitted to make a few remarks about this solemn occasion. Many years have indeed passed since that Holocaust that was Bataan, and we remember the gallant stand of the Filipino and American soldiers who offered themselves and fought for freedom and democracy. It was a Thursday, April 9, 1942, when Bataan finally fell, after close to 120 days of fierce and one-sided battles. As we recall the ignominy of that sorrowful day of surrender, the nation takes pride to announce to all the world the honorable service of her courageous and dedicated soldiers. Today, we come again to this hallowed ground to pay homage to our veterans and to perpetuate a camaraderie enriched by time and strengthened by the kind of faith and loyalty that only brothers in arms can foster. And so, we happily look back, although with nostalgia, at the unforgettable events of the past. Truthfully and honestly, we had great expectations and hopes for victory, but this was to be rejected by destiny. Nonetheless, we relished the thoughts that indeed there was nobility in our cause and that our determined efforts to defend our beloved country will never be in vain. May this monument, this dambana ng Kagitingan, always remain as a symbol of honor and dignity, even in defeat. Finally, allow me to recite excerpts from what was written by the late Salvador P. Lopez, former president of the University of the Philippines, who was then a second lieutenant at the time Bataan fell, and which was broadcast to the troops and to the nation over the voice of freedom. And I quote, "Bataan has fallen, with heads bloody but unbowed. We yielded to the enemy. Besieged on land and blockaded by sea, we have done all that human endurance can bear. What sustained us was a force of an uncontrollable faith, something in the soul that is immortal. It is the thought of the native land. All the world will testify. Men fighting with unshakable faith are made of something more than flesh. But we are not made of impervious steel. The flesh must yield at last. endurance melts away, and the end of battle must come. Bataan has fallen, but the spirit that made it stand, a beacon to all the world, cannot fail. Unquote. Thank you very much. Our next number will be the invocation to be delivered by Colonel Joel V. Lofamia, Chaplain Service, Chief of Chaplains, AFP.
Almighty and eternal God, we gather today in your name to celebrate the glorious deeds of our heroes, whose valiant and selfless sacrifice is enshrined in this hallowed ground. But we gather today not so much to commemorate a day of infamy as to inspire and strengthen our collective resolve to work for attainment of unity among our people and for mutual understanding and cooperation in the family of nations. We therefore dedicate ourselves to the cause of peace, freedom, and brotherhood. We pray for peace in our country and in the whole world through a united covenant to banish all war forever in our midst. We pray for freedom, not only from oppression and war, but most especially from the scourge of poverty, ignorance, and greed. We pray for true brotherhood, not only among our people, but also among nations. Let this shrine perpetuate the legacy of all those who gave their lives so that we may live in peace and freedom. But let it also serve as a constant reminder that peace and freedom can only be attained when our people are solidly united in a common vision and common pursuit, and all the nations of the world work together in mutual understanding, cooperation, and friendship. Lord, make this shrine an instrument with which to build bridges of unity and understanding among our people and among the nations of the world. We remember our heroes to you, Lord. We pray for them as we fervently hope that their sacrifice was not in vain. In your name, this we pray. Amen.
Please take your seats. We shall now hear the welcome address by the Honorable Ernesto S. Gedaya, Chairman of the National Executive Committee.
His Excellency Fidel V. Ramos, President of the Philippines, and our Commander-in-Chief, the distinguished members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, headed by Majority Floor Leader Alberto Romulo and Mariano Badilla Sr., respectively, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors of the Diplomatic Corps, the other distinguished guests, the members of the provincial and municipal government of the province of Bataan, my fellow veterans, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the National Executive Committee on the observance of Araw ng Kagitingan and Veterans Week, I bid you all welcome to the most significant event during this historical week, the Araw ng Kagitingan here in Mount Samat, Pilar, Bataan. For many years after World War II, Bataan meant only one thing to the Filipinos and the outside world. It meant the place where our ill-equipped and unprepared Filipino soldiers bowed down to the formidable might of the foreign aggressor. It was where the Filipino soldier, led by the American allies, surrendered in shame and humiliation. Yes, Bataan meant defeat. Today, however, this perspective has changed. Bataan before may have meant defeat and surrender. But more than this, the Bataan phenomenon 52 years ago only underscored the fighting spirit of the Filipino soldier. Despite their inexperience, unpreparedness, and lack of supplies, they put up the most stubborn resistance that echoed in the history of battles, as perhaps one of the greatest shining examples of valor, courage, and bravery before an enemy with far superior air, naval, and land equipment in far superior numbers. On this day again of April 9, we salute the Filipino veterans, not only those with us here today, the aged and the sickly in our hospitals, but especially to those who fell defending our motherland. We salute you in this memorial year in Mount Samat, which was built to honor your heroism and which ever stands proudly to declare to the world what soldiery is all about, the struggle for peace and freedom. But peace and freedom is not just about wars and battles. It is also about progress and development. It is also about the betterment of our material lives. It is about education, healthcare, roads and highways. It is about the vision of Philippines 2000. Isn't this what the Filipino soldier really fought for? And to this new battle, we acknowledge with gratitude the presence of our President, himself a veteran of the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the local military campaigns. So too our other government leaders here today, many of them also old Filipino soldiers.
We acknowledge also our American and Japanese friends who are expressing this solidarity of change with us. And finally, we also acknowledge our corporate and business friends and visitors, the new soldiers of progress and development. To one and all, welcome to Bataan, welcome to Mount Samat, welcome to Araw ng Kagitingan. Maraming salamat po.
At this point, may we call on His Excellency Yoshifumi Matsuda, Ambassador of Japan to the Philippines.
President Ramos, Ambassador Negroponte, Secretary Gachis, Chairman Diado, ladies and gentlemen, standing on the top of Mount Samat before this monumental cross this morning, I am overcome and deeply pained by the grievous memory that the blood of thousands of soldiers was shed at the foot of this mountain, and that tremendous anguish follows the battle on that long road from Bataan to San Fernando under the blazing summer sun. To express my personal sentiments about the events we commemorate today, I'd like to quote some lines from Prime Minister Hosokawa's speech at the Japanese Parliament. I quote, "I express my profound remorse and apologies for the fact that Japanese past actions caused unbearable suffering and sorrow for for so many people, unquote. We have gathered here neither to recall antagonism nor to rekindle the hatred of the past. I stand here today with President Ramos and Ambassador Negroponte of the United States of America on this solemn yet amicable and peaceful occasion in the spirit of solidarity. We have much reason to rejoice over our reconciliation and friendship which have developed among our countries. If the Pacific War demonstrates to us the devastation of military confrontation, then post-war history has illustrated how fruitful cooperation among our nations can be. Japan, the Philippines, and the United States of America share values of democracy and freedom, and ensuring peace and prosperity of the Asian Pacific region is in our common interest. We worked together during the long years of instability and confrontation of this region. And now, our three countries, together with like-minded countries, are forging ahead and moving towards creating a greater community in the Asian Pacific. We are further consolidating regional cooperation in a wide range of areas, enhancing mutual reassurance among nations of the region and adding more dynamism to our economic activities. Japan is ready to make further contribution to these joint endeavors and remains committed to supporting the nation-building efforts of the Philippines and other countries. We assemble before the valiant souls enshrined at this place every year to relate to the dearly departed that their cruel death was not in vain and their precious sacrifice will never be forgotten. It is our solemn duty to further strengthen the ties of friendship among our three nations and use our solidarity for the cause of peace and prosperity in the Asia-Pacific region. Only yesterday, I presented my credentials to President Ramos. I am grateful indeed that I can begin my official duties in this country today here at the Mount Samat Shrine with a renewed determination to do my best in my capacity as Japanese ambassador to the Philippines, one of the closest and most important neighbors of Japan. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po.
We shall now hear the remarks of His Excellency John D. Negroponte, Ambassador of the United States of America to the Philippines.
President Ramos, Ambassador Matsuda, General Gassis, General Gidaya, members of the podium, veterans of the conflict which we remember today, ladies and gentlemen. We gather here today to salute the Filipino and American soldiers who gallantly fought and died on these mountains 52 years ago. President Manuel Quezon eloquently summarized the significance of this epic battle when he told the Filipino people at its height that, quote, American and Filipino soldiers are fighting side by side with signal valor and are mingling blood in a common drain for the defense of the principles and liberties which Americans and Filipinos alike love and cherish. End of quote. The crucible of the 4-month struggle for Luzon, which ended here in the agony of defeat, marked the prelude to the final triumph of the principles to which President Quezon referred. Japan, our wartime adversary, was reborn after 1945 into a vibrant democracy as deeply committed to freedom as America and the Philippines. Today, our three countries stand together, linked by strong ties of friendship and cooperation, which play a key role in sustaining the peace and prosperity of the region. As we look out on this battlefield, we should therefore remind ourselves that the suffering of the men who fought here was not in vain. It contributed, rather, to the emergence of a better world in which all three countries have a vital stake and can justly take pride. Like others who have spoken at this ceremony in recent years, I believe that the highest tribute that we can pay to the heroes of Bataan is to rededicate ourselves to the values of democracy and freedom for which they fought and died. But it is also an occasion for reflecting on Philippine-American friendship, a relationship rooted in the shared sacrifice of our soldiers who stood shoulder to shoulder here and in the later battles that culminated in the liberation of the Philippines in 1945. This year, we are jointly commemorating the 50th anniversary of the liberation. For some of you, it is still a living memory. For most Filipinos and Americans, however, it is history, and a rather remote history at that. It is my hope that by rekindling the spirit of friendship and brotherhood that bonded our two peoples during the war, the commemoration ceremonies will contribute to strengthening the new American-Philippine partnership that Presidents Clinton and Ramos announced in Washington last November. In this sense, the heroes of Bataan provide an example and inspiration to Americans and Filipinos as they work together to build on the past to create an even closer and stronger relationship. Thank you very much.
The present Veterans Benefits Law of the Philippines, Republic Act 6948, was signed 4 years ago to this day. This law was authored by Congressman Eduardo Pilapil in the House and Senator Alberto Romulo in the Senate. It was recommended by then Secretary of National Defense Fidel V. Ramos to then President Corazon C. Aquino for certification as an urgent measure. Today, we will witness the signing of a new law improving and further enhancing this Veterans Benefit Law. The new law was authored in the House by Congressman Mariano Badiles of Lanao del Norte, and the Senate version was authored by a group of senators headed by Senator Alberto G. Romulo. Present to witness the signing today are delegations from both houses of Congress. Leading the Senate panel is House Majority Floor Leader Senator Alberto Romulo, Senator Orlando Mercado, Chairman of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, Senator Rodolfo Biazon, and Senator Gerson Alvarez. The House panel is headed by Congressman Mariano Badiles, Chairman of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, Congressman Antonio Ciriles, Congressman David Ponce de Leon, Congressman Roque Ablan Jr., Congressman Dominador Venedes, and Congressman Felicito Payugo.
We would now like we would now like to call on the Honorable Feliciano M. Gasis Jr., Acting Secretary of National Defense, to introduce our honored guest.
Honored veterans, my dear countrymen, our welcome visitors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. His Excellency Fidel Valdez Ramos, President of the Republic of the Philippines.
Maraming salamat, kalihim Feliciano Gasis ng Tanggulang Bansa. Binabati ko rin lahat ng mga veterano, mabuhay kayo! Sabi, mahina daw ang tuhod ninyo. Ngunit ako'y naniniwala na kahit na mahina, yung party na yon, malakas ang loob. The distinguished members of the Senate and of the House of Representatives, Ambassador Negroponte, Ambassador Matsuda, the other ambassadors representing their countries here today, the honorable officials of the province of Bataan, Mayor Pizarro of the host town of Pilar, Bataan, Colonel Manny D. Ocampo, President of the Veterans Federation of the Philippines, ating dalawang napakagaling na kabataan, si Marie Chris Loveda, champion ng mga secondary orators, at si Rockmel Gumabon, champion ng mga collegiate orators. Palagay ko, mga kasama, ito ay hindi lamang araw ng mga bayani, hindi lang araw ng kagitingan, ngunit araw din ng mga kababaihan. Dahil sila nanalo sa rhetorical contest. Ating mga katulong sa pamahalaan, our special guests from abroad who are here I see many of them from Seattle, Washington, from Japan, from Korea, I met some of them, and from all other places. A good morning to all of you. Magandang umaga, mga mahal na kababayan. Maayong buntag kaninyong tanan, mga kaigsoon. Maungyagod si kayo namin, kabalayan. Naimbag nga aldaw yung amin kakabsat ken kagayim. Every year on the 9th of April, we pay homage to the epic heroism and selfless sacrifice of Filipino and American soldiers who fought some of the greatest infantry battles of World War II right here where we are. These are the battles of Corregidor, Bataan, and other heroic encounters which we commemorate in this Araw ng Kagitingan. We are inspired by the words of our young Filipinos, by their pledge and commitment to work as hard, as sacrificially, and as dedicatedly as our heroes of World War II, represented here by so many of them. And we are equally inspired by the pledges likewise of the ambassadors of the United States and of Japan in the spirit of cooperation, solidarity, and universal brotherhood, when they said before us that they shall continue their commitments to help bring the Philippines to a better life, not too late from now, hopefully by the year 2000. Mga mahal na kababayan, ang pagdiriwang ng Araw ng Kagitingan ay isang muling paglalaan sa diwa ng kalayaan, kaisahan at kaunlaran. Ito ay sagisag ng pangako ng buong bansang Pilipino sa pagtatanggol ng kalayaan. In this hallowed battleground, Filipino soldiers stood tall and proud in the defense of our motherland. Right at the start, our soldiers knew that their mission was to hold and delay the advance of the invaders, hoping that fresh reinforcements would arrive in time to extricate them from the fierce onslaught of the enemy. The fact that they held on for 5 months of relentless aerial, naval, and land attacks, thus upsetting Japan's timetable towards the Southwest Pacific, was among the most significant and historic battles of the Second World War. Fort Bataan Corridor was an epic of human endurance. While the enemy continually brought in fresh troops, the Filipino-American soldiers were sent to combat duty day in and day out until they were killed, wounded, or just dropped from sheer exhaustion. Illness and the lack of food proved to be the worst enemies of the defenders. They could have continued fighting had medicine and food been available at the front lines. As it were, they defended this peninsula well beyond all expectations. But finally, there was nothing more to prove. To stop the waste of more young men's lives became the only sensible thing to do. General Jonathan Wainwright, the highest-ranking commander among the defenders, summed up the feelings of his officers and soldiers in the following words, and I quote, I feel it my duty to the nation and to my troops to end this useless slaughter. There is apparently no relief in sight. American and Filipino troops have engaged the enemy nearly 5 months. We have done our full duty. We are sad but unashamed." Unquote. For the surviving veterans who fought in Bataan and Corregidor, brave men now in the twilight of their lives, the events of the hot months of 1942 may now be merely dim memories. But to us, their successor generations, including our 2 lady orator champions, and the Boy Scouts out there, and the Girl Scouts, and the high school students who hiked all the way from Central Luzon to this hallowed shrine. To us, your successor generations, remembrance of those warriors is both an inspiration and a challenge, as well as a social responsibility as we struggle in our time and in our way to assure a better life and a brighter future for our people. The deeds of the men and the women of Bataan, Corregidor, and other battlegrounds of the Philippine campaign teach us that the never-ending struggle for peace, freedom, and prosperity exacts a price, a heavy price, in individual self-sacrifice on behalf of the social whole and in our individual willingness to heed the call of civic duty. The idea of citizenship carries with it the sense of responsibility for what happens to the nation as a whole. In its original Greek sense, the word idiot refers to someone indifferent to his duties as a citizen. For society is much more than an aggregation of individuals or families. Society, our Philippine National Society, has a recurrent hunger for some sense of the ideal, for making an effort beyond personal enhancement and self-interest. We are not just tenants on this land, our beloved Philippines. We are not just transients here, and we are not just passing by. We are here on this land to stay, this land, our beloved Philippines, which the young men of Bataan and Corregidor fought so hard to defend. And so our task now with the successor generations is to develop the habits of thought and the habits of action, to energize, mobilize, and labor steadily to achieve our national goals under our shared vision of Philippines 2000. Huwag niyong kalimutan, mga kababayan, ito ang ating simbolo. Ang gusto sabihin nito, kung tayo nagsasama-sama, kung tayo nagkakaisa at nagtutulong-tulong, kahit anuman ang kahirapan, kahit anuman ang krisis, kahit anuman ang kalamidad, kaya natin ito. Kaya isigaw niyo kung kaya ninyo. Kaya ka rin ba? Once more, para maningig sa Tokyo at saka sa Washington DC. Kaya ba ninyo? Salamat po. My dear friends, it is fitting that we should set aside this day to renew to our veterans the honors and the recognition that they deserve. But more than medals and honors, our veterans and their dependents need to be assured of adequate financial and economic benefits so that they can live out their lives in dignity. As already mentioned, as Secretary of National Defense, I initiated as early as 1988 the standardization and upgrading of benefits for military veterans and their dependents. And this was eventually enacted by Congress and signed into law. This bill, principally authored by then, or still Senator Alberto Romulo and then Congressman Eduardo Pilapil. That law became Republic Act 6948 when President Corazon Aquino signed it in April 1990, on this very same day. Also, as Secretary of National Defense, I also worked to seek the support and approval of Congress, President Aquino and her financial advisors to rehabilitate the Philippine Veterans Bank, or the PVB, work and support that paid off when the bank was reopened in 1992, mainly through the efforts again of Senator Alberto Romulo and then Congressman Eduardo Pilapil. Today, I have signed in your presence Republic Act number 7696, authored principally by, again, Senator Alberto Romulo, with almost all of the members of the Senate as co-sponsors, and on the part of the House, authored by Congressman Mariano Badilles, and co-sponsored by the majority of the members of the House. Republic Act 7696 amends certain sections of Republic Act 6948. And among the highlights of this new law are the increase of the old age pension of military veterans from 500 to 1,000 pesos a month. Pambihira ito, mga kapatid at mga kasamang veterano. Dahil sa kahit na maliit pa lamang yan, kayo lamang nagkaroon ng 100% increase sa buong pamahalaan. But do not despair. Wait a while. Stop dying. There's a more escalation, close yan. As time goes on, without further recourse to Congress, tataas yung pension na yan. There is also the increase of the pension of surviving spouses and dependents, and the increase of burial assistance. Never mind, I will not mention that anymore. Huwag natin pag-usapan yan ngayon, ano? Likewise, it provides for the upward adjustment of the monthly disability pension of our war heroes, depending on the level of the disability. In addition to this, we have opened an expanded office for Veterans and Reserve Affairs in the Department of National Defense, and I have designated one of our very own veterans, retired Brigadier General Ernesto Guidaya, as the Undersecretary for Veterans and Reserve Affairs to underscore the importance of the veteran sector in our national society. Other manifestations of our deep concern for our veterans and their families are the following. The organization of the Filipino War Veterans Foundation, PhilVets, to extend aid and assistance to veterans from the private sector. And that organization, after 4 years of existence, has now been able to build up a trust fund of 30 million pesos, mostly from contributions of corporate donors, as well as a lot of small Filipinos, as a token of their appreciation for the services rendered by our veterans. We have also expanded the hospitalization and other medical benefits in the Veterans Memorial Medical Center through the establishment of veterans wards in various government hospitals all over the country, as well as financial support for the rehabilitation and the development of the Balantang Memorial Cemetery National Shrine in Iloilo, which was the area of operations of one of the most famous guerrilla resistance outfits during World War II, the 6th Military District under the late General Macario Peralta. We are continuing our efforts also to pursue the unresolved claims with the United States government for the services of Filipino veterans during World War II. For this purpose, we have established the Office of Veterans Affairs at the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C., formerly headed by the late Ambassador Nick Jimenez, now by retired General Tagumpay Nanadiego. And during our visit to the White House last November 1993, as already mentioned by Ambassador John Negroponte, I renewed the issue of such claims with our good friend, President Bill Clinton. He did not say outright yes, but neither did he say outright no. So we will keep working on it now with this renewed and strengthened relations between the Philippines and the United States. To fast-track the registration of those Filipino veterans who have acquired U.S. citizenship but who have decided to remain in the Philippines, I have directed Secretary Dillon of Justice to adopt a special procedure to register such veterans in collaboration with the U.S. Embassy and to create a special task force within his department to handle the registration and immigration problems. Even as we undertake all of this, we realize that our efforts to improve the lot of our war veterans really are not enough, for they can never be enough. Whatever we do with the successive generations can only be partial recognition of what we owe them. Whatever we can do is really just a humble tribute to their courage and heroism. We can never savor the blessings of peace and truly appreciate the value of human dignity unless we recall the rigors of war, which our war veterans went through. These veterans who have been tested in the crucible of war have time and again reminded us, their successors on this, our beloved native land, that we too must do our share. This was the message of our two articulate and eloquent kabataans, that we too must do our share. In our time, our mission is to work for enduring peace and stability so that our country can move forward faster in this highly competitive world. Today we are faced with far greater and more powerful enemies like poverty, low productivity, disunity, injustice, corruption, and apathy. These are the negative forces that we must contend with and overcome in the everyday life of the nation. And so, let us make this day, and every day for that matter, a day of dedication so that we not only honor the sacrifices of our war heroes and our war dead, but we also assure for younger Filipinos after us that the future for them will be brighter than what ours has been. Kaya mga mahal na kababayan at mga kapatid, sa kabila ng ating maraming paglaban, isantabi natin ang anumang sigalutan at sama-sama nating ipaglaban ang kapakanan ng lahat. On this day of gallantry and courage, let us rededicate ourselves to the task of bringing our people to their redemption and triumph, so that we can fulfill the promise of this land of freedom, our beloved Philippines, carved out and built for us by generations of Filipino heroes. Sa inyong lahat, maraming salamat. Mabuhay ang mga veterano. Mabuhay ang Philippines 2000. Thank you very much.